All right, get out your pens, maybe your pencils. You might want to change things because it's time to fill out your March Madness bracket. All 68 of the men's NCAA tournament teams were announced last night. The annual event is back after COVID-19 canceled last year's tournament. And while some of the most recognizable blue blood schools did not make the cut this time around, there are some familiar names. Gonzaga returns as a #1 seed, and Sister Jean's Loyola Chicago Ramblers are back in it for the first time since their underdog Final Four run in 2018. Action on CBS starts Friday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern. Also starting Friday, CBSN will have scores on the bottom of your stream, so you can stay up to date with all the latest games, and you don't even have to leave your computer for it. For some analysis now, and to help us, fill out our brackets maybe, let's bring in Matt Norlander. He's a CBS Sports college basketball writer. Thank you so much for joining us. So for me, I'm not going to lie, I basically look for the teams that are in the general Philadelphia vicinity, and then I just go by the pretty colors of their uniforms. I'm not that informed, but I like to get involved, so maybe you can help me. Before we get into the games, to help us understand just how the NCAA has prepped for this, because much like every major event, things are a little bit different with a pandemic.
Sure, I'll try and be as concise as possible here because it's a huge logistical challenge. So the entire tournament is taking place in the state of Indiana with almost all of the games in the city of Indianapolis. A couple games later this week will actually be held about an hour away at both Purdue and Indiana's campuses there. Players are testing every single day. Teams arrived on Saturday, Sunday, and so many are arriving here on Monday. When they get there, they get their swag bags, you get tested. You go back, they tell you can take as much water, Gatorade, snacks as possible, because guess what? You got to go quarantine in your room while we run these test results back. Then their second day after arrival, they wake up in the morning, they test again, they go back to the rooms, they quarantine, and they wait for a second negative test. Once that happens, they're allowed to get a second colored wristband. They're wearing two different kind of wristbands. They can go practice into select rooms in their hotels. Only teams are staying in these hotels, by the way. It is on lockdown. It is not technically a bubble, but it is a controlled environment. And on this note, really quickly, I want to address Virginia and Kansas because those are two teams that are going to play in the NCAA tournament or hoping to, but they actually had to leave their conference tournaments last week because of COVID issues. Virginia actually has almost its entire roster in quarantine right now. It is not scheduled to leave until Friday. Its game is scheduled for Saturday. It is a tight situation that we are monitoring by the day. If Virginia were to get a number of positive cases, or Kansas on Monday or Tuesday, it could eliminate it from the bracket. And I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but Tuesday at 6 p.m. is the deadline for any team to drop out because of COVID and potentially have a team like Louisville, which is the first team that's in line, or Colorado State to replace a Virginia, a Kansas, or if this issue were to surface with any other team.
So the four #1 seeds, Gonzaga, Illinois, Baylor, and Michigan. Who of those four is in the best position for a deep run?
Gonzaga is. So it comes out of the West. It's undefeated. It's the 20th team in the history of the NCAA tournament to enter the NCAA tournament with an unblemished record. Weirdly enough, Gonzaga is the 1 seed in its region. The 2 seed is Iowa. The 3 seed is Kansas, who I just mentioned, should be playing, but it's still got COVID issues. We don't know if it'll have its full roster. And Virginia, who I also just mentioned, is the 4. How about this? Gonzaga's already beaten Iowa, Kansas, and Virginia earlier this season. So not only is this the best team in the tournament, the top seeded teams in its own corner of the bracket, they've already been, and all those wins were dominant Gonzaga wins. I mean, they beat Virginia by 23. They scored more than 100 on Kansas there. So, it is the obvious answer, but it's the true answer. Gonzaga has the easiest path to get out of its region and be into the Final Four.
Matt, you're making this sound like it's going to be boring. There's got to be some upsets or something, right? We have there's some traditional powerhouses that did make it, like Duke and Kentucky. So could that increase the opportunity for upsets?
Yeah, but also I think just the nature of how this tournament is happening here with, everyday COVID stuff, testing every day, players and coaches are going to be in their rooms. If they're not practicing or watching film or playing in a game for the most part, they're going to be confined to their rooms for this first weekend. So I think because of all this, that also the environment, just the nature of what's happening here will lead to some more upsets overall. So listen, the tournament always comes through with some drama, and that's not going to change this year. If you want to keep an eye on a couple of upsets, I think Winthrop on the 12 line and UCSB on the 12 line. Winthrop plays Villanova. UCSB plays Creighton. That's Santa Barbara on the other side. I'm sorry, Villanova is going to be a team right for an upset. That's a Philadelphia area school. They don't have Colin Gillespie, their lead point guard. He's got an MCL issue. They haven't looked good since he went down 3 games ago. So I keep an eye on those. Those are two 12 over 5s. Remember, you always want to pick a 12 over 5. And the 13 that I like, I probably would take Ohio over Virginia because you have multiple potential outcomes there. Like if Virginia doesn't even get to play because there's an issue that surfaces Wednesday, then Ohio just gets to advance. It's a no contest. They will advance in the bracket. But if not, Virginia's going to practice maybe once, maybe twice before it plays this game. That's a competitive disadvantage. So keep an eye on Ohio as the 13 in the West as another upset potential, in addition to those two 12 over 5s, Winthrop over Nova, UCSB over Creighton.
So maybe you mentioned this, but what are some of the key first round matchups we should be looking out for?
So LSU versus St. Bonaventure is an 8-9 game here. I love that I'm informing your audience about these matchups that I'm infatuated with here.
Also informing us, dude.
Yes,
because Anne-Marie and I are like,
right?
We're like, yeah, sounds good.
Oh my God, this is amazing. This is so different from CBS Sports HQ. It's unbelievable. I love it. So LSU and St. Bonaventure, they're wildly different schools. St. Bonaventure is in Olean, New York, in the middle of nowhere. LSU obviously down by the bayou there. Different conferences, different coaches. LSU's actually caught up in an NCAA scandal, but it hasn't faced a punishment yet. So there's a lot of subplots to that. The teams just play wildly different, by the way. LSU has multiple future NBA players. That's one I would keep an eye on in terms of a really good game. UNC Wisconsin is an 8-9 on the other side of the bracket. Carolina, there's a blue blood for you, but they're not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seed. They're in the 8-9 game, so that's a bit unusual there as well. You see these games here, Michigan State, UCLA, that's a first 4 game. That'll be played on Thursday night. That's a big one. But in terms of the main bracket, the 2 I mentioned there, plus one that I kind of like is Utah State versus Texas Tech. I understand that Utah State is not a national household name. It's just a really good team. And Texas Tech made the most recent national championship game. So I like that to be a competitive matchup there. I promise you, we are going to have game after game after game, even if you don't know much about these schools. It's going to feel great just to have the tournament back. Close games. We have gone 2 years without this, and the nation is just starving to have the greatest sporting event in this country finally return. The tournament is going to deliver. It always does.
When you said starving, you reminded me of the time that we all filled out our Snack-It, which was our snacks of choice. That's the kind of environment that you're talking to right now. Popcorn won at the end. It was very exciting. So that being said,
the point being, Dan, that Anne-Marie and I know nothing about college basketball. You can get up here and lie to us, and we'd be like,
We do know our snacks, but shall we get back to the point? So we know that you like Gonzaga to go all the way. But what about the Final Four? Who are your picks?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to take 3 number 1 seeds and 1 number 3 seed. So Gonzaga out of the West, and then bottom left corner of your bracket, I'm going to take Texas to advance as a 3 seed. It's arguably as talented as any of the number 1 seeds. It's just a number 3. It's taken a few more losses this season. So I have Michigan not getting out of that side. And then on the right side of your bracket, I have Illinois as the number 1 seed in the Midwest and Baylor as the number 1 seed in the South. I don't love this, by the way, because we've only had 4 number 1 seeds make the Final Four once ever. That was 2008. And 3 number 1 seeds isn't all too common. You get it, once every 8 to 10 years or so. But I'm going to go with these. Gonzaga and Illinois are the 2 best teams heading into this NCAA tournament. And Illinois is the hottest team. I actually have Illinois over Gonzaga in the title game. And if that happens, it'll be the first title in school history for Illinois. And that would mean that Gonzaga would be 1 win away and come up 1 win short of sports immortality, going undefeated. That has not happened since before any of us were born, 1976. And I know that's a factual statement. I don't even need anyone fact-checking me on this. 1976, Indiana was the last team to go undefeated and win the NCAA tournament. I've got Gonzaga falling 1 game short and Illinois winning in the title game.
The only fact check there, Matt, is I was alive and well in 1976.
No. you look like you're a wonderful-looking 37-year-old, my man.
You're coming back on, man. You're coming back on. Matt Norlander, so good to have you. This was really great. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.